Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. I got a special guest in the building. Like, y'all when I say we about to flow, literally. My girl, Amy Gaston, is in the building. We was just riffing earlier, and even when she is thinking about stuff, she brings melody to it. She's like, let me think. Booty, bop, boop, boo. Amy Gaston, how are you doing this morning?
Oh my goodness. It's so good to see you, Brother Terrell. How you doing?
I'm doing blessed. Now that you, and for those of you that's gonna get this visual experience that we're gonna put on YouTube, before we even get to the introduction, you got like, I'm just feeling inspired by the scenery. So take me through. First, let's start with the head wrap, then take me to the back picture, and then to the African sculpture over here. Tell me what we got. What we got in the zone here.
You know, we got to bring the cowrie shells. We got to bring all the things. We got to rock the turquoise jewelry. We got to do the head wrap with the African mask. We got to have a little bit of Nina Simone in the backdrop. We got to have some, we got to have some greenery too, right?
There
we got the green. I got some flowers too, but we ain't got to bring enough screen. So we just going to roll with it like that.
If I ever get my studio set up, like, I'm gonna have to have you come and do you. This she like a walking Etsy shop, y'all. Like, she got for us by us, FUBU.
Okay, that's right. Right there, all day, every day. Yes.
Now, I know you are a woman of many things, executive director and founder for the International Cultural Arts of Healing and Sciences. That's a mouthful. Say that fast 3 times.
That's why you can use the acronym ICASI, and then you get it
ICASI. And the executive director for World Trust Educational Services Organization, and your key focuses on promoting healing and wellness through art and activism. And I love that. I think art has a great way of not only just telling stories, but healing us and activating things in us that sometimes we didn't even know was there. So we'll talk about that. But for the people who don't know who you are, who is Amy Gaston?
Okay,
and I know that's a deep question, so you can take that as far as wide as you want, but go ahead. Give the people what you want to give them.
Well, we're going to start with the name. So, Amy Gaston, Ami Gaston, Amikaeyla Gaston. I got a lot of names, but one vibration, which is all love, all day. Let's see. I grew up in the DMV, the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area.
Me too.
I now live. Oh, where you at? Where you come? What you do?
Northwest D.C., down the street from Calvin Coolidge High School.
Oh, you went to Coolidge? Let me find out.
I went to Coolidge.
Okay. So how about we have to testify? My whole life, I've had to try to explain go-go to people. Like, they just don't know. If you want to see me do it, why not do it like that, y'all? Or meet me at the go-go. Or meet me at the go-go.
Hey.
Meet me at the go. Let me find out. Okay. You know what, Brother Terrell? I've probably seen you on the street. Okay,
we probably do. Wait, my band was, I don't know who your band was, but I grew up in the area of Backyard Band, and I was on the EU a little bit, but Backyard Band was my...
Please, it's sure to please. I did EU. I love me some Rare Essence, and we can't do nothing but Chuck Brown. And what's so deep was, right before we're gonna have a go-go moment, y'all. Excuse us for a minute. But right before Chuck Brown passed away, we were gonna do this big concert in tribute to Eva Cassidy over at Strathmore. And literally, I was so excited to perform with Chuck Brown. And he died like right before the concert. Man. So we of course did a tribute to Eva and Chuck at the same time at the concert. Man, we did a go-go song. Everybody stood up. They were doing the WAP in the middle of the aisles. It was fantastic.
Man,
so that's me, beautiful. Y'all. I love all types of music. I love all types of people. I travel the world as a cultural ambassador for the arts, and I do things. I just got back from Thailand and London, where we were doing this whole project called A Tale of Two Rivers, where we look at the Mississippi River and the music of the Deep South and all of the things that happen for folk, particularly, with the Gullah culture and all the folk that are down in New Orleans and in the South and Alabama, everything along the Mississippi River, and compared it to the life along the Mekong River in Thailand and in Laos and all that, and looking at how it's not just social justice that I focus on, it's eco justice. We're talking about all the things that are happening for folk of color that are either along the water and they can't get what they need because big business is cutting off and setting up dams, and so you can't get the water that you need, or it's affecting the fish and the way that they migrate. Or we're in places, like the Caribbean. You and I from the East Coast, we jump over to the islands all the time, but corporations have purchased all the things up against the water. Brown and black folks can't even get to the ocean anymore without being on somebody's property, quote unquote, trespassing, when it's all Jaws land anyway. But it's very interesting to have those conversations when you start highlighting the intersection between justice and privilege and bias. And so that's what I do in my day-to-day work with World Trust Educational Services, is that we really go to places like large corporations like Disney, Pixar, Google, and we talk about how we still have to have these conversations, not just in context of George Floyd and what happened there, but how are your, employment practices? Do you even realize when you're being biased, et cetera, et cetera? And so it's important stuff to do. And, brown folks, we're still carrying the majority of that work because we have to fight for our own representation, but we're doing it. And that's how we're doing it. We're doing it with a smile. We're doing it with art and music. That's how you really crack open the heart, to get people to kind of access themselves in that way and understand and walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. We're starting a whole project, or we have a water initiative going on now where we're talking about, sub-Saharan African girls that are still walking the water trail to go get clean water for their families. And they're 4 and 5 years old, carrying 40 pounds of water in a jug on their head through all kinds of treacherous stuff. It's something that most folks don't have even an awareness around. And so, that's what we're trying to do, is just through art, through storytelling, through just the sharing of knowledge, trying to bring focus onto these things where people really still need our attention. Refugees, the ways that war divides us and destroys us, you really don't hear about. You get like a 60-second giblet on the news, and that's all you know. You don't know everything else that leads up to that. So that's me. That's what I do.
That's such important work, especially because we don't know what we don't know. And then even with all the access of information, I still feel like people are experiencing the world in silos. And the thing I love, because I get to interview people from all over the globe, and I get to have these dialects and conversations of how they perceive people who are in the US and their knowledge and what's fed to them. And those conversations, I get to debunk some of those, like, oh, that's a movie.
Stereotype.
That's not like that's not how it really is.
That's right. Absolutely. I was
one
in
representation. This bit.
That's right. And they got it from a video that was mass produced, and then they think that we talk like this and we look like this and we only want this, and everybody that has dreadlocks does this, and everybody the stereotypes are perpetuated in this way. So yes, I feel you on that one, brother.
And I love that you're doing it through art, because I feel, some of the narratives that have been pushed through mainstream media, which has been very Eurocentric led, that if we can amplify the art from the cultural perspective of our people and then the other marginalized groups, we'll have a much diverse and even representation and understanding of the world as a whole, instead of one that's been pushed, a narrative that's been pushed to us and force fed to us, and we operate from that space, right?
That's right. And it's been mass produced and it's been commercialized and it's been pumped out in a certain way because it's making money. And so people have a perception of us that's just this teeny, tiny, tiny, tiny aspect. And they have made a generalization. And it's easy to do, because if that's all you see, that's all you think. If you only see, Black and brown men being handcuffed and taken to jail because they've done X, Y, and Z, that's what you're going to think. That's all we are about. That's all we do. That's all we, and so it's not just folks overseas that think this. Sadly, it's our people here as well. And we just have to
I'm glad you brought that up because that's a big reason why I started to do this podcast is because I used to do workforce development. So I don't know if you're familiar when Marion Barry had like the youth programs in DC. So I did a version of that here in San Diego, right? And I
Wow.
would go out to our inner city Black youth, and I would tell them, and I would create these programs, which create positions in middle wage jobs to create pipelines. And I remember I would go speak at these different schools, high schools, colleges, and so forth. And our own kids would have these limiting beliefs on what they could do,
Yes.
what they could be, right? Well, actually, hold on, let
Yes.
me not put that on the youth. Some of the adults had limiting beliefs too on
Yes.
what we could do, what we could be, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, you the only one." I was like, "No, I came out of the hoods of DC, the gutter. Like, I'm not. Y'all. It may look like I'm middle class, spoon bread fed, but nah, it took some work to get here.
Yes. You had to do some things. You
I
had to
had to
do
do
some
some
things. That's
things."
right. That's right.
And
That's
so
right. And
all
that's
that
how
to
you serve as
say,
an inspiration, right? When
yeah.
people know that you came from X and got to Y and you didn't just magically appear there, then they're like, "Oh, I could do that too." What are the steps
Mhm.
to get from X to Y? And you serve as an inspiration.
Yeah, but I realized it couldn't be just me, and because then they think, oh well, you're an anomaly, and I was like, no, I
Yes.
know other Black people out here living life on their terms, doing great work, doing what they're gifted at, and sharing skills that are unique to them, and
That's right.
like the only way out the hood is not to be just a rapper, a ball player,
That's right.
or nowadays they thinking YouTube star, which I'm like, all right, there's other ways to get out the hood.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And, a lot of people think that if they're not good in school, then they have to be those other things as well. And so
Hmm.
the limiting beliefs are very, very profound. And if you hear them enough, you really start to believe them. And so that's one of the things that art can do, where you can see artists that are, my goal is to have
Hmm.
art from everywhere, from all walks of life, from all different segments of folks. So it's not just like the famous ones who've done
Hmm.
this hit show and this hit song, and that's why people bring them, and so that they can zhuzh up their event with this quote unquote star. You don't have to be a star to live a really great life. You don't have to
Hmm.
be someone that's always in the spotlight. And I think that that's the issue with our current culture. Like you
Yeah.
said, we're all being siloed because we're living in this atomistic reality where everybody's on their own phone, their own music pumping through their ears, their own world. They don't have to really interact with each other. So we have no idea what other folk are doing. And you could be living a fabulous life and
Hmm.
are the manager of the local Taco Bell. We don't even know, like people don't
Hmm.
aspire to these other types of things because we're still being force fed the idea that you're only worth something if you are
Hmm.
famous or, a doctor, lawyer, businessman that making
Yeah.
billions of dollars, butcher, baker,
Hmm.
candlestick maker. So if you don't see yourself in that way, you think that you're nothing. You get depressed. You start taking drugs. Da 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 da. Like you can
Yeah.
go down a whole rabbit hole when you don't see yourself reflected, and all
Yeah.
the different types of people and all the different types of ways that you can be you reflected back to you. So you have choice.
Yeah, you have choice, you have agency, and I think these conversations allow for people to see, oh, hey, you're right. Now, another topic that because I know you talk a lot about how music is therapy, and I want to learn about that as well. And I know for me, music has been therapy because when I was in the hood growing up, like it got me through things. Music got me through things, right?
Yes.
It either amplified me to fight through a situation or it consoled me. Like I'm really in love with the 90s music before you know record labels start pumping out all this deaf culture of capitalism, sex, drugs, and
Yes.
money. Like
Yes.
we had hip hop culture was so diverse in the 90s. I had Tribe Called Quest, I had De La Soul,
Oh,
I had Busta Rhymes, and then I had
De
DMX
La
too,
Soul.
right? With my nose,
Yes.
like I had a little bit of everything, and then slowly we start to see, this other type of culture perpetuating in our hip hop music.
Yes.
I had the Miseducation of Lawyer, which is one of my favorite albums, by the way.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
Before they sent my girl on a spiral of the industry. Uh,
The industry. And I'm so glad you called it out like that. So many people were like, oh, what happened to her? She went crazy. The industry.
No, the
Yes.
industry happened to her. Like they just the great ones,
Happened
like
to so many of us. They try
yeah.
and curb our voice, right? Exactly. And like you, yes, music gets me through everything.
Uh-huh.
And people are always like, why is everybody playing their music so loud in their car? Because music is getting them through something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know when I'm feeling some kind of way, I need to either pump it out in the shower and sing at the top of my lungs, or I need to get in my car and drive with all kinds of music blasting. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's the therapy that I think we still kind of take for granted because there's a lot of it, we think, and we think that
Mm-hmm.
it's, something that's just an is and a constant. But I think a lot of times how, you know, and I'm going to say it, our country and specifically, we take
Mm-hmm.
artists for granted. We don't
Mm.
give them the type of money if they aren't making something that's for sale, that's commercial, and they think that they're going to have masses of people listening to. If you're a very unique artist, and now you
Mhm.
can kind of get your own, self seen on YouTube and all the rest of that stuff, but you still have to drive people there. So there's a very strong focus still to kind of stay inside, having music stay inside of your computer, stay inside of the visibility of it. It's got to be on YouTube, it's got to be for sale, it's got to be when you can just have music be for you and your family and your friends that brings you joy. Like, where's the room for the voice in that? And I think that that's what I'm
Mhm.
really intrigued by. I did a lot of work just now when I came back from London. We were doing a big, a global concert for Ukrainian
Mhm.
refugees because of the war.
Mhm.
And one of the things that's happening is that Russia was targeting Ukrainian folk artists because,
Mhm.
the soul of a country is in the arts. It's not debatable. And so they were targeting
Mhm.
people that were holding the soul of the country, the soul of
Mm.
Ukraine. And so I was interviewing folk artists that were on the run. They were actually refugees running and hiding so that they didn't get murdered because they're
Mm.
carrying these ancient traditional songs. And just knowing that even though these people aren't able to live, this highly lucrative life or be quote unquote famous, they still hold the soul of the universe. So I think about like the lullabies and the songs that my grandmother used to sing to me, and these traditional songs that we don't really sing except once a year. You sing Lift Up Your Voice and Sing like in February. It needs to be something that's woven into the fabric of
Mhm.
our daily lives, even if somebody isn't making a buck off of it. Like, it
Mhm.
holds our story. I listen to Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder. That's the music I grew up in my childhood, and I cling to it like crazy. And I think that the way that music was reflected and created when we were going through civil rights and really trying
Mhm.
to analyze who we be in community with the rest of the world and who we be to each other as a people. Nina Simone, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm
Mhm.
Proud, James Brown, all the different ways that we were able to claim our identity through the music is something that I think
Mhm.
we still need to aspire to do.
Mhm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think Bob Marley said it best. These songs of freedom is all
Hey,
I ever had.
sing
The
it,
day we
Terrell.
sung songs. The day we
Redemption song. I love it.
um
Woo! You are funny. And that's absolutely right. That's
like,
what we all have. It's song.
Um, I wanted to like I was thinking in your earlier comments when you talked about the industry, like packaging things up. I've recently stumbled across an interview with Most Def and Quali, and they were talking about this is why we had problems in the industry and we didn't pop off. We got some success, but we didn't have the success of the mainstream success because the industry was like, well, I don't know what to do with this. How do I sell bubblegum with this? How do I sell this? Like, I don't know what to do
Exactly.
with this. And so we had to
Exactly.
like put out a lot of stuff ourselves. And then we had our crew, but we wasn't trying to catch a wave or
Right.
package anything. We just wanted this to solely speak to the soul of our people. Right.
That's right. That's right. And the fact you just said it right there. The fact that we judge quote unquote success by what the industry standard is, and the industry standard is just trying to sell bubblegum, it just breaks my heart because so many people stop. They don't think to just keep going, to sing to the soul of our people, like you just said. They're like, oh, well, I can't sell it, so I quit. And how many great artists' songs do we not even know because they decided they had to go make a living and go do something else? So their voice was never shared. It's just, we have to change that. I'm committed to changing that.
Now, you've used this music just to kind of, go along around the world and not only teach cultures, but create diplomacy across cultures. So when you think about the work you've done, what are some best practices for building diplomacy across cultures based on the work you've been doing?
What a great question, Terrell. I honestly do believe that, and this is the work that I do when I go and give facilitations to these big corporations, and they're like, how everybody's so afraid to talk to one another. I think communication is so key, whether you're singing a song together or whether you're talking to one another. Having an openness of heart is the best practice always. So anytime I go to another country and I'm immersed in another culture, another language, we don't speak the same thing. There's a moment where we get taken into a room in the State Department where they give us, these are the cultural norms here of this place. And so you read and you learn, and so you know how to maneuver out of respect. And so even if I make a mistake, I can say, I'm so sorry. Can you please tell me how it is you want me to say that? I think here in this country, we could benefit so much from not being afraid to talk to one another, but being more open to saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I said that incorrectly. Let me course correct immediately. People are so afraid to still talk to one another. And I think that until we learn how to be authentic and genuine with each other without there being the fear of being yelled at or cancel cultured or anything else, we're never going to be able to build the bridges and have kind of the universal we that we're looking for, that we need to have. Because honestly, we need to talk about water. We need to get to the place where we're dealing with the fact that we are going through a global climate change, that until we all come together and start behaving as one and being, family around taking care of ourselves as a species, all of these conversations are going to be moot because we're going to be looking at a whole other situation.
Yeah, so true. Like, because in my day job, I do equity, diversity, and inclusion work throughout the county, and in this work, and what I've learned, and I'm continuously learning and growing, is that you have to have an open heart, an open mind.
Yes.
And you have to have a level of curiosity because you have to suspend judgment and have a level of curiosity. So like, even when somebody says something to me that's like really off key, I'm like, okay, I'm curious. Well, what made you say that? Like, but really be curious. That, like, you have to suspend the judgment and get curious because they have a different world experience that made them show up in this way. And if I allow the space for them to be human and for us to have a dialogue and get curious, then I can tap into how they came to their conclusion.
Exactly. Let me tell you, you just nailed it on the head. And that level of curiosity and openness will allow for a deeper conversation to happen. Okay, I'm going to tell a story right quick. So I was in Palestine. They had me fly over as a celebrity vocal judge for their first ever Palestinian Idol. And so I'm there working with the kids to kind of make sure that their voices are intact. I do a lot of work as a vocal coach and making sure that they're able to take care of themselves and sing these songs. They sing these traditional sacred songs at the top of their lungs, and they were really losing their voices quickly. Anyway, the show's happening and everybody's on stage, and this young boy comes to sit next to me and he says, "Sit, Ami." Sit means ma'am. "Sit, Ami. I'm wondering if you could teach me how to speak nigger." And I was like, like, wait, what? And I said, I had to get curious about it and say, "What do you mean when you say that word?" And he said, "My nigga, hippity hoppity, my nigga, my nigga." And so he had been listening to YouTube videos where we use that word all the time. And he thought that that was just he didn't understand the historical context. And so we had to have a larger conversation around the use of that word and what it means and why it's
Mm-hmm.
offensive. And he had no idea. And so if
Mm-hmm.
I could have easily been like, let me tell you something, you know, I could have gone into my autopilot response when I hear that word, or I could have gotten curious and said, why don't you tell me a little bit more about what that word means to you? Where did you hear it? You know, and so when we were able to break down that he wanted to actually learn how to rap, is what he was asking. That was the only way he knew how to ask, because that was the word that he heard the most when he listened to rap. So then I was like, oh, okay, now we're having another conversation. And as you continue to move into the deeper layers of conversation, you create a stronger trust and bond with someone from a totally different culture. So that's best practice right there. Be curious. You nailed it, brother. Right there.
Yeah. I love that story. Thank you for adding that story to it, because I think that help give people more context, and hopefully gives them a visual representation of how they can, how we as a global society can continue to do this work, and
Yes.
and look at each other as humans, even in if we have disagreement, we have disagreement with civility by recognizing each other's humanity, right?
And that's a t-shirt. Everybody, you heard it first here. Baba Terrell just wrote a t-shirt. You can buy it on his Etsy channel. For real.
So I'm curious, what led you down this path of healing others?
Wow, that's a good one. Well, first of all, both of my fabulous parents are healers. And actually, my mother was the assistant surgeon general for the U.S. government for my whole childhood, basically. And it was always kind of a mantra in our home, you know, pretty is as pretty does, which basically means do good in the world. You know, don't be worried about what you look like. Worry about what you do to help lift up yourself, your community, your people, all of these things. And so healing others is how I heal myself. And so it is definitely a collaborative event.
I know.
I know. You know, when you say you're doing DEI work, you know, it's something that is so important. And I think one of the things that people get lost in, like for example, we talk about like Karen crying, you know, like these tears that people are like, oh God, not another white girl crying. It's part of her healing process. And if we step into a compassionate place of like, okay, we don't want to derail what we're talking about, but I want to honor the fact that you're feeling something very strongly. We can move in a way of healing that will allow for the conversation to continue to flow. And so I've always been very intrigued, even as a child. They called me the bridge. That was my nickname, because I was bridging, you know, white folks and black folks hanging out, you know, bully kids, being picked on kids. I was kind of like the mediator. I don't know why that happened, why I took that on, but it was something that I felt was really important for us to be able to get to the solution. The solution is the nexus for healing. And so it's just always been in me. It's always been something that I've been drawn to and wanting to be kind of a part of, or in the front row seat, front and center, to watch healing happen. And so you mentioned Bob Marley before. I remember seeing that video when I was younger, where he brought those two communities together in his One Love concert, where he had these two political leaders actually grab hands, and he emanated, you know, the love and the belief that we could come together. That was critical. That was critical. It stopped mass murderings from happening. An artist, and not just his music because he was famous, but because his heart and soul was in that. He believed in that. That to me is what I'm aspiring to be able to be a force in the world, using music, using theater, using poetry, using visual art, using dance, self-expression, any type of that way that we can share how we're feeling and put it into the world, and have other people say, I'm feeling the same way. Let me connect with you so we can help shift whatever's causing that tension. And I think that healing is ageless, it's timeless. You can do it different generations, different racial barriers. There is no barrier that you can fight the desire to really to heal and become whole. I think
Mm-hmm.
is a strong, it's a strong energetic force that's difficult to fight if you believe that someone
Mm-hmm.
means it from their heart.
Yeah. As I'm sitting listening to you talk, so many layers for me that pop up for myself, and hearing you talk about the work that you do. Like in my early years, in my childhood years, I was very much a very artist and energy type of person.
Mm.
But my stepdad, who is Nigerian, as immigrant parents, art is not going to help you survive in your
Right.
later years. So I let's say I didn't follow my heart work and I went
Yeah.
into more, but it never left me. It was always a part of me, but it showed up in different ways in life, right?
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
learning to
My parents
embrace it.
used to tell me you can sing, but you could be a singing doctor. That was the goal. Like you can still do it, but you still gotta be, so you can sing
Well,
after your work day. You could go
well,
sing all
at least
weekend
they told
long.
you that. They like, my friend, how are you going to pay bills with art? Art. What is that? Art. Hey, my friend, go study your books.
That's right. That's right. Earn your billions and then you can sing. Sing after you're rich. Yeah, exactly. And
uh,
you can
um,
see why they thought that, right? This whole starving artist motif is real. There's
right,
not a venue for us to have, what we need as artists and make it in the world and share the art of it.
right.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Right. And so like I've been able to bring the artistry into the way I public speak and do the
Mm,
D&I work to bring groups together.
mhm.
And I'm learning like you how to kind of, use that gift to, although at times I realize, I, doing this work requires another level of self-care because all of the energy that you
Yes.
bring in and all the
Yes.
healing that you have to do in the circles
Yes.
to bring all of that and do it well. So I was like, man,
True that.
uh, if Amy would have told me back then, I'd have did more work to get ready.
Listen, I mean, that is so real. And it's so, I'm so glad you brought that to light because I think most of us, I know I was raised with the whole, suck it up, get through, you can do it, don't be so, the whole concept of being weak if you take time to actually breathe, rest, take care of yourself, is not something just for, privileged ones. Even if you're
Mm-mm,
working, you need to be able to take care of yourself so you could keep doing whatever you're doing, whatever your mission, your highest calling is. It requires attention, it requires care, it requires being in community and in communion with yourself on like, you know
mhm,
what? Today, I need today's a lay down on. Most
mhm.
days I wanna lay on the sofa. You know what I'm saying? I love me some Tank and the Bangers, baby. But yeah, when there's days when you wanna just lay on the sofa, some days you need to just do that and just lay on the sofa.
Right.
Today's the
And like
sofa
I
day.
tell people all the time, look, just like they tell you the first thing they tell you when you get on the plane, when the oxygen mask come down, take care of
Yes,
take care of the loved ones. Take care of yourself first before you take care of the loved ones. Our first
that's right.
inclination is to go take care of our
That's
loved ones,
right.
especially our black women in our communities. They take care of
Yes,
everybody else before they take care of themselves.
yes,
But
they do. And you
when,
know
when
why?
why?
Because
Break it
we've
down.
been told that we're the lowest of the low, that we don't matter. And that
Mm,
our worth is through other people living and lifting us up.
mm,
And so when you start talking about when you have all of the things, and let me tell you, as a black woman, we are all all of the fights, all of the marches, all of these things are asking us to separate ourselves. Are you black? Are you a woman? Are you this? Are you that? We have all of the ways that
mm,
people have arrows pointed at the lowest common denominator. That's us. We're holding
mm,
up the whole pole. We're holding up all the folk. And so
mm,
we're tired. And that was the next
mhm,
thing I was going to add. In self care, when you have been trod upon for so long and you're so tired, and it's showing up in ways where, our health disparities are off the charts more than anybody else around the
mhm,
globe. It's because
mhm,
we're holding the stress of it, the strain of it, the angst of it, the pain of it, because we have been told all this time that we aren't worthy of being held as the highest queens and empresses that we are. And so it takes something to really remind myself, okay, stop working, put the computer down, close it, you are done for the day, right? You know, like I have to really say that to myself, even knowing all the things that I know.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it really does take something to do that. And so you acknowledging that is very important to continue to do.
Yeah.
You know,
And you can't even achieve your highest self if you're not there with rest and your
that's
health.
right.
Because if you think about it, you know, going to my analogy, if you trying to help this person out and you pass out along the way, then you ain't helped nobody.
That's right. That's
Right.
exactly right.
Another thing I recently learned from a beautiful Black woman who came on my show end of the year, she told me rest is revolutionary. No, rest
Yes.
is restorative and revolutionary. I said,
Yes.
I felt that.
True. Listen, the nap ministry, I just
Yes,
found
and
out
then I
about
came to
that.
learn it was from the nap ministry.
The nap ministry. I am a devotee now of the nap ministry. It's time to take a nap. And you can restore and rejuvenate. Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Yeah, so I'm all about in the revolution of rest and healing is going to be the way to our
That's
sovereignty, you know.
That's the evolution of revolution.
Ooh, there you go. Let's put that on the t-shirt.
That's my t-shirt.
That's
my
your t-shirt. Oh man. So listening to your voice for this whole 30 minutes now, I've realized your voice to me sounds like home. It sounds like it's something familiar, and it just feels like home. And then I realize another reason why it feels like home, not just because of just your wonderful, beautiful soul, but it reminds me of Jill Scott. Have you ever got that?
Listen, wait a minute. Oh my God, this is so funny you saying this. First of all, when I went to the Grammys, people were taking all these pictures of me. And I thought it was because I looked fabulous until somebody said, Jill, turn around, Jill. And I was like, I said, Jill, I apologize. I was your doppelganger that day, girlfriend. I whipped around on the red carpet. I was like, one of my best Jill Scott face I could. But they really did. I get that all the time, that I look and sound like Jill Scott. It's crazy.
And Jill Scott blessed the Go-Go's several times.
They say I'm crazy, honey. Right? That's my jam.
That's my jam right there, girl.
You know what, bro? I'm coming over. We're gonna have us dinner together. I don't know where you at, but
we gonna have to have a family reunion.
I'm saying we need to have a family reunion because I know you're my blood. That's
so you know, for me, where I first established my voice in D&I was a little bit after George Floyd. I remember having a stern conversation with some people in my leadership team, people in the community, and so forth, because I think everybody finally witnessed something that they had not witnessed in their lifetime. And the approach that some people took in who were in leaders at that time was not the best approach. And then I was able to, even in my time of hurt, and just I had to muster up the energy to bring community together and have a conversation that brought us to tears, to hold space for that. Like, imagine that you're hurting, right? And you're a team of people that you work with to do leadership training, development, all this other stuff. And then nobody's talking to you. And you're like, wait, I thought we was family. I thought this was my work family. And they're not acknowledging anything. And we're just pushing through like there's nothing going on in the world. And they're talking to me less. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like,
yes.
Who am I really with? Like, maybe these people.
Right. Who's really in the room?
Yeah, who's really in the room? Okay, all right. And I remember I was experiencing some things too, and you know, uh, I and I remember experiencing something with my biracial daughter that at that time. This just had me shook. And,
Mm.
I was like, okay, I need to know who I'm in the room with now, because like this not. I can't keep going.
You better sing it. You better sing it, Bridget.
and,
Absolutely.
and so I found my voice in that moment. Now that I look back on it, and it was the most pivotal moment of me changing my life and the community of people who are around me. And
Mm.
um, all that to say, when did you find your voice?
That's such a good question. Woo! And before I get into my voice, I just want to take note that they did this study where they noticed why they were wondering why people were responding to George Floyd in this movement now versus even Emmett Till, things like that. And one of the things that they realized was that when people see things in color, it becomes very real. When you see things in black and white, you feel like it's back in the day. And so they've started colorizing and putting color to a lot of these the footage from back in the day and these different movements, so that people understand that it's still the same thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just 50 years beforehand. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the point, is that we're still fighting something that's 50, hundreds years. This is not a new movement. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that recognition, coupled with going through surviving my own hate crime, is where I found my voice. I was run over on purpose. I was standing in a field of flowers and I was run over on purpose by
Wow.
5 white men driving a big white truck. They literally hit me as a pedestrian. And I was standing waiting to go into this big giant music festival. And I died. I left my body. I came back, the whole thing. Like, it was very profound. And even to hear, as they're trying to lift the truck off of me, the police officer say, "Don't worry, boys, get on out of here. One less N word in the world is fine with me." And let them go. Because I was that worthless. My life
Mm.
was that worthless. When I came back and I did all the things I had to do in the hospital, 2 years, getting all the things fixed back, patchwork, gum, bubble gum, sticks, popsicle sticks, everything to get me back walking. Because every day the doctors would come in and say, "Oh, we're going to have to amputate your legs." And every day I would say, "Maybe tomorrow, not today." And just have to stay in that place of belief. And the
Mm-hmm.
only thing that got me through, that hospital stay was music. I knew that was where my healing was going to have to be focused at. I couldn't separate medicine, because medical school, I was right there. Medicine from music. To me, they are
Mm-hmm.
part of the same story. It's not, and there's no one sole track for the
Mm-hmm.
healing of a body, the healing of a mind, the healing of the soul, the healing of a people. And so
Mm.
I knew that my voice had to come in to the conversation around bringing music back into medicine, bringing music
Mm.
back into the fore of people understanding how that is where we get full body healing. They've done all these,
Mm.
my degrees in neuroscience. They've done studies where they look at the mind and how it lights up. And how it lights up, this hemisphere lights up when you're doing math and these things. This hemisphere lights up when
Mhm.
you're speaking. Both hemispheres light up when you are engaged in music, when you hear
Mm.
music, and even full brain activity when you participate in music.
Mhm.
When you hear something like that, that's kind of non-debatable. It's very much so part of
Mhm.
the situation. And the fact that they've done studies where they can kind of program people to how they're going to purchase items in a store depending on what kind of music is playing lets you know that we resonate literally and figuratively with music in a way that's on a cellular basis. And they've done different studies where they've looked at, for example, when you play Mozart over water, the water crystallines, the molecules form different shapes and kind of
Mhm.
come into a place of harmonious adherence that allows for it to be more received in a healing and healthy way. There's just some things that we know now that you can't really debate. And so they're starting to really bring sound therapy into a space that's not just considered woo woo, like, "Oh
Mhm.
yeah, I'm going to play gongs over you." That actually really helps. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't just stay very Eurocentric, like, oh, Mozart. Yeah, no, also Nigerian drum jam too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's go. Listen, I was down. I sang in Nigeria with Tubaba, honey. And Tubaba, you can trust and believe that brother. You are my African queen. Yes. Like, he is bringing Nigeria into the fore in many ways. And it's a healing thing too. So I found my voice when I realized that the only way that I survived was through music. So now I'm going to go out and I'm going to start, everybody, bong, 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 hit them drums and those cast iron pots. Everybody gather around. It's time for the drum C healing session. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I love it. I love it. Now, give me, and man, so many things that, but I know I can't unpack all of it today. All right. Give me an example of how music has been used to transform the lives of people that you worked with.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm gonna give this beautiful last story. This story is when I was working with the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, and we went to Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria, and we were really working with Iraqi refugees that were kind of frozen in post-traumatic stress. Like they couldn't talk. They were living in squalor shacks. They were really like suffering. And, we were going with these different cultural ambassadors. There was a cultural ambassador of art and the cultural ambassador of dance and cultural ambassador of photography. And I was the cultural ambassador of music. And so we went to all these different places where we were talking with different Iraqi refugees. And I went to one house and there was a woman there, Salima. And everyone was asking her, can you please fill out this form and tell us how it feels to be a refugee? And da 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 da. And she was frozen. She was like, I have no memories. I have only sadness. And she was just, you could tell she was just broken. She was like, I can't even begin to process what you all are saying. So I just started singing to her. Yamile odo. Yamile odo. She has no idea what I was talking about. I'm singing Yoruba to this woman. She has no idea what I'm saying. She just knew that my heart was singing to her heart and that I was sending her love and light. And she stopped and she turned to me and one tear fell. And then more tears fell and she started crying and wailing. And I went over and I hugged her and I was rocking her and she was crying and I was right there with her. And all of a sudden she started rattling off all these memories to me, talking about how she remembered her daughter and her grandchildren are still in Iraq and how are they going to get here, and all the date trees, the palm trees with dates. We think about like the ramification of war. It's not just the displacement of people, it's a displacement of tradition. It's a displacement, the loss of land, the loss of trees, the loss of plants, all the things that we use to weave into, when you're asking a boy to marry a girl or however it goes with respect to these different very core life-changing moments, there is a way that we need to weave in earth elements. So for them there, you get a certain date from a certain palm tree that was by a certain river, and that's how you present it to the family. And that tree is gone, that river is gone, those dates are gone. And so there's no way to get that tradition back. It's been obliterated by the war. She was feeling all of these things, and crying and weeping. And the only reason that she was able to crack open like that was because of the music. And once she was able to emote and cry, then we could get to a place where we started hearing each other and sharing. And then some restorative practices came in until the point where she started laughing. We could share tea. They started sharing dances. The whole energy of the room shifted because music was involved. And then music started becoming the focal point. We were dancing, we were laughing, we were drumming, we were singing. There was no more need to look at this form over here like, can you tell us how you feel being a da, 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 da. It was very much so baked into the singing and the music and the art. And that's medicine. That's how music is medicine. That's how the acknowledgement of sharing heart. And there's something, that I do, the heart voice method, where we really look at how your heart and your voice come together to create that magical moment of understanding, of liberation, of co-liberation, and of healing.
I love that. I love that. Now, make a quick transition into the the becoming of Miss Amy Gaston. One question I usually like to ask as we go down this lane is, what was your first job? And the reason why I ask that, because sometimes when I talk to young people, they often have this mindset, especially the ones that just graduating college, that they're going to just, oh, I got the experience now because I got this degree and I'm going to start off doing this impactful work, making this good money. And I'm like, no, young lad, don't always start like that. And
No.
some of your favorite rappers had humble beginnings. Some of your favorite superstars, doctors, lawyers, entertainers had some humble beginnings. Let me tell you what their first job was.
Yeah. And hey, that's real. And I definitely encourage students to have a ton of different types of first jobs, right? So my very, very, very first job was when I was 9 years old. I went out, I made a flyer. I was like, we'll babysit, we'll do, getting really entrepreneurial. Other kids were doing the same thing. I'll mow your lawn, I'll do these things. Because I knew that my little allowance I was not gonna be able to raise the money I needed to raise so that I could buy the roller skates that I wanted to get, the ones with the light up wheels, so that I could do my Boogie Wonderland in style. So I knew I had to supplement. That's at 9 years old. And then I've had all kinds of jobs since then. In high school, I worked at Popeyes, honey. I worked at
Okay.
order out, order out, order out. I was the one everybody wanted to come to my register because I would sing your order back to you. And there are different ways, but the one that really, I had jobs working in labs at, the National Institutes of Health. I've had all kinds of jobs in governments, the American Psychological Association, all these things. I think for me, and that's such a good question, like, what's your first job? The first job that impacted me the most to know that I wanted to do healing work with the arts was really working at this. It was right out of college. It was working at this camp called Oddfellows.
Yeah.
And it was a camp for musicians and theater majors, and how we all brought our different artistry to the table to put on these large productions to talk about ways to change the world. So putting on Broadway musicals, putting all these different things on to the stage and bringing the community together and having people watching the audience transform. That came through that particular job. And I think that it's humbling to know that you can have all these different jobs, from a babysitter to working at Popeyes to working in a lab as a lab person, to stepping into creating your own business, like taking all of those different experiences and synthesizing them. So I know one of the things that I want to focus on is healing children. That comes from my babysitting stuff, and making sure that their health is taken care of. That comes from the health side of stuff, and weaving in art. That comes from that particular job. Like all the jobs that you take, you look up and we're such kaleidoscopes of different things. Pulling them all together and weaving them makes the tapestry of you. So don't just take one job because you want to go down that particular road for that particular quote unquote industry. Explore so many things, because you think about all the kids that are in the inner city and they were told they could only be a b-ball player or whatever. They only focus that. They put all their eggs in that basket, and then their knee blows out. Then they're stuck. They don't even have the imagination to think of what they could do next. And if you give and encourage young folk to try everything, because you might be drawn to something that you never even knew or thought you would be drawn to. So do a whole lot of first jobs, y'all.
I did a whole lot of first jobs, so I know what you're talking about. I know what you mean when you say that. Now, I have no doubt, like, once like a young person hearing this is going to be inspired by your journey. When you think about your journey today, of course, at such a young age, you already had an entrepreneurial spirit, and you had a free spirit to try new things. But what was some things that you think helped you be successful in that to get to where you're at? Like somebody who's hearing your story is like, you know what? If Amy can do it, I can do it now. Like, but but what were the things that helped you be successful in doing it so that they can understand that, and then not saying that they have to be exactly good at that, but just to have some premise of
Right.
how you
Absolutely.
honed your own unique gifts to be successful to where you got today to create this amazing
Yes,
thing.
I hear you. And then, again, it's not one particular thing, but the aspect and element that I think makes for any kind of successful anything, be
Mm-hmm.
it job focused, entrepreneurial focused, anything, life self focused, is to really believe in your own integrity and trust your
Mm-hmm.
intuitive self. If it doesn't feel right to you, do some inquisition and follow that lead so that you can understand what it is you're missing or you need. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to spend a whole lot of time thinking, my boss is such and so and so. Your boss might be, but it also might be part of something that you need to learn about your work ethic. So thinking
Mm-hmm.
about what work ethic looks like. It's not just a job duties list that you do to the T. It's about how you start to believe in yourself and trust
Mm-hmm.
yourself to know quickly whether or not this is the path for you, this is not the path for you. This is what you need to add. This is what you don't need to add. And we are never really taught how to trust ourselves. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that you're told you're supposed to do, something, oh, just trust your gut. What does that
Mm-hmm.
mean? So, really getting the youth to start practicing and giving them tools to understand what it means to trust your intuition, trust
Mm-hmm.
yourself, know that that doesn't mean that you're right, quote unquote. It means that there's a listening to others that needs to filter through to how you hear yourself. What is for you? And that
Yeah.
requires a level of self inquiry that we don't necessarily afford our youth. We expect them to fit into a box, do what we tell you to do. That's not setting them up for success in the long run when they have to make decisions on whether or not they should
Mm-hmm.
stay here, go here. So that's just a core element that I think we as adults need to impart to our youth so that we don't leave them stranded when they need to know how to think and know how to know, as opposed to just follow a list of duties and
Yeah.
descriptions.
Yeah. And to segue on that, as we spoke to earlier, we said it's not just all the youth, right? Some of us adults have limiting beliefs, and I think what the pandemic has done, what George Floyd has done, is it has awakened some of those adults who've been stuck in this dead end career because they
Mm,
were told to
yes,
do something, right? And now they're like,
yes.
okay, well,
I
I
have one life. Why
I
am I
have
doing
one
this
life.
still?
Why am I doing this? My gut
Yes,
is telling me like now. My gut's been telling me, but it really awoke it because I had nothing else to focus on. Now my gut's saying like, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to shift some things. This
that's
is the
exactly
season of
right.
the pivot of your life and business,
That's right.
and I need you to do something other than this. And
That's
and,
right.
and now they're in that a season of trying to figure that out. What's some advice would you give to somebody like that who's in that phase of pivot, and they hear this, they see what you've been able to do, and now they want to tap into their best self.
Again, besides trust yourself, there's nothing like my mom. She would make me sit down and be like, all right, we're going to make a pro con list. The pros of staying, the cons
Hmm.
of staying, the
Yeah.
pros of leaving, the cons of leaving. See which one balances out and really start putting things on paper so it doesn't stay in this ethereal framework of like, I don't know how I feel. Start concretizing how you feel.
Hmm.
My boss is horrible, but I really like this job, or vice versa, however it goes. Start
Hmm.
putting down on paper the pros of leaving, the pros of staying, the
Hmm.
cons of leaving, the cons of staying, and see how it fleshes out. And then again, check in with yourself after you see that on paper, what your next move should be. And also, it is one life, right? As someone
Yeah.
who died and came back, let me tell you, when I realized that I needed to make a shift and get exactly what I was looking for, and the belief that I could craft the life that I wanted to lead, that takes guts and resilience and an inner
Hmm.
fortitude that comes with time, continuing to tell yourself, I think I can. I think I can. I know I
Yeah.
can. I know I can. I think, the little engine that could,
Yeah.
moving it along.
Now, when you look at your industry in a nutshell, and I'm assuming like I don't know what to call your industry. I think it's music therapy, art and activism, like DEI. It's like a mesh up. I don't know. You could frame what the industry is, and you look at it, the future of your industry. What does it look like, especially for people like that look like us? My melanated folks, of looking at how do we tap back into our own ancestral cultural past history pathways and create new career pathways or create a lane or be a part of the wave. I don't know what it looks like, but give me a nutshell. What does the industry look like in your eyes, and what does the future look like for us in this industry?
I think the future is that it's industry less. I think that
Mm,
there are less and less categories of quote unquote industry because it
mm,
is a mashup. They used to be like, what genre of music do you sing? Rock and roll or blues or jazz? Like where they're, but now they've got neo soul. Now you've got things that are coming
mm,
together. And so our industries are, you know, new age spirituality, music therapy, neuroscience healing. There's all these different ways where the intersectionality of not
mm,
just who we be, but how we do is very real. And I say that don't get stuck in the industry, like quote unquote, the industry is shifting and the industry is antiquated. That kind of
mm,
structural oppression is, we're trying to get that off the table.
mm,
The essence of story, the essence of self, and all the ways to project that out into the world now is really what it's about. And so
mm,
the ticket is work on self. Work on
mm,
being your best self, your highest self, your truest self, your freest self, your happiest self. And these other elements will come into being.
mm. I love that. Now, I feel like me and you could talk forever, but I don't do the Joe Rogan type interviews.
Yeah, I know we've got a time frame. It's probably about that time.
So let's
But
wrap it up
it's
like
been
this.
beautiful.
What projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Yes. I'm working on many, many projects, but the one that I love the most is coming up, which is all about, it's called Women Carry Water. And it's really
Mm,
looking at how these stories of these young girls from sub-Saharan Africa and how we carry water as women figuratively as well as literally, how we
mm,
can come together and weave a way to become true water wellness weavers. How do we all come together with our story, with our knowledge, with our knowing, and make a space that's not just socially just, but eco just, and share the truth of the fact that water is life, and that if
mm,
we want to continue to live harmoniously together, we have to live harmoniously with nature. And the first thing we have to do is clean up our act and clean up the way that we treat water
mm.
and Mama Earth, period. So find me at world-trust.org. Find me at Amikaeyla, AMIKAEYLA.com. And you can even email me at amikaeyla@gmail.com, honey.
Ooh, she giving out
But
the
all the,
email. She giving out the
listen,
email. So you ain't got no excuse not to connect with my sis
yes, we
and
will
get
we will
get
come
that water for
together.
life.
Get that water for life, the freshness, freshness, freshness. I'll sing to you some Jill Scott songs. We can hang. It'll be good.
She even do some photo ops. Jill, we sorry, Jill, but
Jill,
she
we love
it,
you. We
look,
promoting you. We
Jill,
promote you.
she represented you. If I know somebody who represented well for you, my sister Amy did.
I
I
held it
promise
down. I
you.
held it down. Held it down. Oh,
Amy,
Terrell,
it's
this has
been
been a blast, darling. I love it. You are
this.
fierce.
Thank you. Same. Like I am honored, blessed. We salute you. We appreciate you, Queen. I am so thrilled to have this interview with you, and I can't wait for it to air. Any last words of wisdom for the people before we sign off?
Be peace, be love, be gentle, and be true.
Be peace, be love, be gentle, and be true. Words from Amy Gaston.
That's
Thank
a
you.
t-shirt.
Another t-shirt. There's probably so many t-shirts through this episode.
You called the t-shirt episode.
The t-shirt episode. If y'all make a t-shirt off of this, y'all make sure y'all tag one of us, please. Don't.
Some percent.
Yeah, you could take all the credit, but I just want to just tag us so we know that we contributed something to the world.
T-shirt slogans. That's right. And go-go music.
It ain't don't mean a thing if it ain't got that go-go swing.
I said do-wah, 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 do-wah. I love you, Terrell.
See, we represented right for the DMV today. DMV stand up. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode. Amy Gaston. We gonna have her back somehow. I don't know what we're gonna do, but I know I gotta have this energy back in my life.
There we go.
And this has been another episode of Rise Urban Nation, and we'll catch you on the next time.